Look, it's not my job to tell you whether a certain vehicle is going to make sense for your specific needs. That's up to you to decide. But I can tell you when a vehicle just makes plain sense, and that's most definitely the case with this new Ford Maverick. No, that doesn't mean it's going to work for all of you out there, but this thing has the style and the substance to easily make it one of the most versatile trucks around. For more expert car reviews, don't forget to share our channel and subscribe so you can catch some of this and maybe even a little of that. Look, I know that's a bold statement to make, but it is not clickbait. Because versatility, it's not something that you can measure. It's not like this has 7 units of versatility. It's just something that when you see it, you recognize it right away, you can feel it. And that was exactly what happened to me when I got into this thing earlier this week. This is one of those vehicles that I was definitely looking forward to, but I was more curious, and it just hit me right away. It was like a light bulb went off and I got it immediately. And you know, you're gonna know whether it makes sense for you. I said that off the top. I don't think it's gonna make sense for everyone, but you're gonna be able to tell as soon as you take this thing out for a spin whether you count in the group that this makes sense for. And I really do think a lot of you are going to like what you find here. No, it's not going to work if you haul a big camper or you're pulling heavy stuff to a job site that's out in the middle of nowhere. Again, you are going to know. But if you're not doing that kind of stuff with any regularity, yeah, this is going to do the trick. I'm telling you right now, it just has a lot going for it, starting with how well packaged it is. Now, I got to tell you, I'm not totally sold on the exterior styling. And I did see something interesting on Twitter the other day. Somebody said that they were hoping it looked a little bit more like the Bronco Sport up front, and I do get that. Now, for those of you who don't know, this does share a platform with the Bronco Sport as well as the Ford Escape. And I think some people were hoping for something a little bit more stylish, just a little bit more character in the face. That's the big one for me. It's not so much the weird unibody shape of it. I don't mind that so much, but the front end, it just looks kind of awkward and frumpy to me, so I do wish it looked a little bit better, but I gotta tell you, in here, it is fantastic. Now, I am driving the Lariat trim. That's the top of the line, so I've got a really nice mix of materials. The surfaces, the textures there, it's just so well executed. A lot of cool colors, too. I love the brown, even this gray. Now, I gotta tell you, it kind of looks like one of those portable sinks. You know, if you go to like an outdoor concert, remember those things? Yeah. Well, you know those sinks that you get, that gray plastic? That's what it looks like, but then it has this cool texture, and it really helps. It's got this kind of 3D pattern, and that extends onto the door panels as well, and then all this brown. It's just so nice, and the same goes with the seats. Now, this upholstery, it's not real leather. Ford really does have some of the best synthetic stuff on the market. It feels like the real deal, and you really sink into this seat too. I just love driving this thing because it's so comfortable. And you know, there really is a lot of Bronco Sport in here, but with more character. I think this looks way better, with one exception, and that is this touchscreen. Now, I reached out to Ford and I didn't hear back because something tells me this 8-inch screen wasn't in the plans, and a big reason why is this little cubby that's beside it. It's very awkward. I don't mind having some extra storage, but it looks like an afterthought, that's for sure, especially because you can't really stash anything in here. A phone doesn't fit. A phone cord, well, it's gonna fall out as soon as you accelerate. I really think a bigger screen was in the works, and that's why this frame is bigger. It looks like it could fit a good 10 and a quarter inch screen, no problem. Maybe Ford ran out, maybe it had a surplus of these older 8-inch screens, and that's why it's stuck with this. It does work reasonably well, though it does feel a generation or two old. It's a little slow to respond. You can tell that refresh rate, especially when you're swiping. You can see those frames as it kind of drags across the screen. But it's got standard Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and those work really well. They are way faster to respond, and you don't have any of the issues with the screen that you see when you're using the base infotainment system. And speaking of smartphones, you know, this does have Ford's app, so you can check the status, lock and unlock the doors, all that cool stuff. You can even start the engine, though I'm not a big fan of remote start. But anyways, it does have that, but it will not work for whatever reason. It just won't make that connection between my phone. The vehicle's registered in my phone, but every time I go to activate the vehicle, it just says it won't work. And then the same goes with the built-in Wi-Fi hotspot. I don't know what's going on with this thing. I checked, I made sure to hook it up to Wi-Fi. All the software is up to date, but for whatever reason, it won't actually activate my Wi-Fi hotspot account that I have registered for. It shows the vehicle, but for some reason, it just won't actually connect. It just keeps taking me back to the login screen. That's a big bummer. I really think Ford should have sorted that out, especially before I got behind the wheel, because, you know, that's really what makes this feel as modern as it does, those little niceties, because it is a little bare bones other than that. If you take a look, heated seats aren't standard, neither is a heated steering wheel. So having those tech features, that's what's going to help set this thing apart. And the fact that they don't work is a bit of a shame to me. And then speaking of the bare bones, well, yeah, there's not much going on. It looks cool, but there's a ton of storage. That is something Ford did really well. You take a look at these door pockets, they are huge. There's all kinds of cubbies up here. Yeah, that one that I talked about next to the screen is weird, but otherwise, all kinds of good storage. And there's even a good amount of room in here. This definitely feels bigger than it is. If you take a look at the footprint, it is a pretty tiny truck. But in here, I don't feel like that at all. I'm gonna say something that might throw you guys off a little bit, but I don't really get Bronco Sport or Escape vibes in here as much as I do Ford Explorer vibes. Yes, you heard that right, Ford Explorer. It feels bigger than it is. I think the longer wheelbase has something to do with that as well. It just, the way it rides and handles makes it feel like a bigger truck. Would I want to spend a ton of time in the back seat of this thing? Not particularly, but I can, and that's the bigger takeaway for me. There's a little bit more legroom in here than you get in the Ranger, and that is huge because it means even a tall guy like me can sit back there in relative comfort, although I would prefer to be in either front seat. You also get heat up there and you don't in the back, and that is a big sell for me, especially this time of year. Now, I do have some bad news. We had a whole towing test planned, and it fell through literally in the 11th hour. Right before we shot this scene, I got a message telling me it was a no-go. I'm super bummed because I was looking forward to seeing how this thing did with a trailer hooked up to the back. Ford says it's rated to pull 4,000 pounds, so about 1,000 pounds less than the Hyundai Santa Cruz, which seems significant, but I really have a lot of confidence that this is going to handle itself well because it's a little more truck-like. Now, it's also got a payload of 1,500 pounds, which is almost as much as the Ranger. I'd say that's plenty. The box, it's 4.5 feet, so about a foot shorter than the shortest bed you can get with the Ranger, but it is super versatile, all kinds of tie downs. Got these rails here, an electrical outlet. There's this little cubby here. You can use it with the tailgate down. You can get a few different tonneau covers, a tailgate extender. There's all kinds of really cool stuff that make this more usable than you might think at first blush. Now, again, I'm super bummed out we weren't able to tow with this thing because it's got a couple other tricks up its sleeve. If you get the tow package, well, you get a tow haul mode as well as a trailer brake controller. You don't get that stuff with the Santa Cruz, and I really feel like that's going to be a huge difference maker when we get a trailer hooked up to the back of this thing. Okay, look, I get that an open bed isn't for everyone, including my boss and your favorite AutoTrader.ca co-host, Jody Lai. That's what she said to me. She drove this thing last week, and when she dropped it off for me, she said to me she couldn't drive a truck with an open bed. And I do get that, though. You can get a few different tonneau covers, like I mentioned, including a roll-up one, like the one that comes standard in Canada on the Hyundai Santa Cruz. That is kind of cool, but I am going to tell you guys a little story because this is what it reminds me of. I used to work for Subaru, and my vice president told me when he was in Japan testing the Subaru Baja back in the day, somebody from Subaru of America asked the project general manager, the guy that developed the Baja, if there was a cap for the back of it. And he conferred with his team in Japanese, and everyone was kind of eagerly waiting to hear what he had to say. And finally, he turned very stoically and he said, there is a cap already. And everyone was kind of excited. He said, it's called the Outback. The point being, if you're buying a truck, it's to have that open bed. Now, I know we're talking about a cap versus a tonneau cover. You do want some secure storage, but the point is buying a truck is for the bed. So I really think if you're in the market for it, you should be taking advantage of it with the bed open so you can haul all kinds of stuff. I could put my bike in the back. Now, you are going to need a tailgate extender if you want to do that because it's not big enough to fit a bike upright, but it is cool that you can buy one of those as well. And again, that goes back to the versatility, and the same with the cargo tie downs or those little cubbies back there, the lights, all of that stuff. It just makes this very user-friendly, and it punches above its weight in terms of what it has as a truck. It does feel like a truck, and the same goes with the way it drives. Now, it's very smooth and it is like an SUV, but I would say it's more truck-like than the Hyundai truck that you can buy, the Santa Cruz that I talked about earlier. And Jody reviewed that thing not too long ago. You can go back and watch that. I'm sure you've seen comparisons, but I really don't see how they align. I've driven both of them quite extensively now. And this is just a little bit more like, let's say, the Jeep Comanche versus the Dodge Rampage, if that makes sense to you. That is very car-like. This is a little bit more truck. Now, I know the Comanche was at least half a frame. It had the unibody up front, but it was a frame in the back. But that's not the point. It's just that Ford really did nail it in terms of this feeling like a proper truck when you're driving around. Now, under the hood of this one I'm driving, it does have a 2-liter turbocharged gas engine. You can get a hybrid powertrain, but this one doesn't have it. And I do want to drive that one, but I gotta say, I really like this. It's virtually the same setup as the Bronco Sport Badlands, the top trim, as well as the Escape Titanium. So the engine makes 250 horsepower and 277 pound-feet of torque. But the bigger thing is, this has standard all-wheel drive with the gas engine. You can't get all-wheel drive with the hybrid. Now, something tells me that's because of the packaging with the mechanicals. I'm not totally sure why you can't get the hybrid, because you can get the Escape hybrid with all-wheel drive. Ford doesn't offer it here. So if you want that extra traction, this is the only way to get it. Now, the thing with this all-wheel drive system, it's the same as most crossovers, right? So it runs in front-wheel drive most of the time in the name of efficiency, but the cool thing is it chips in with rear-wheel traction when you're accelerating or if the front wheels start to slip. That is very cool. It's a fully automated system, so you don't have any switches to control it. You do have some terrain modes down here, but the point being that it does its own thing. It knows what to do, and you can even watch on this screen when it's sending torque to the rear wheels. I really like that, so you know it actually is working. And I gotta say, it's even reasonably efficient. Now, obviously the hybrid is the way to go if you want to save fuel, but in this thing, earlier this week, I went on my evaluation drive. You guys know the one I always talk about. It's a little over 200 kilometers. It covers highway, secondary highway, and city streets. It was pretty cold, really windy, lots of snow, and I averaged 9.1 liters per 100 kilometers. I mentioned that to a friend, and he thought it wasn't good enough, but just to give you guys a little context, that's what the Honda Accord is rated for with its 2-liter turbo engine, and that one's front-wheel drive, and it's a car. This has an open box on the back, so I'm pretty impressed with the fuel efficiency here, and again with the drivability, because it's got tons of guts too. It's really windy today, but when I step on it, it doesn't sound all that great, but this thing gets up and goes pretty good. But then the cool thing is, when you're cruising, even out on the highway, the revs stay nice and low. The gearing of this 8-speed automatic transmission is just about perfect, and I usually don't like this transmission. I had big problems with it back when I drove the Escape, as well as the Lincoln Corsair, but none of that here. And this thing will hover right around 2,000 RPM, even at triple-digit highway speeds, and that is great to see, because that means you're going to save fuel. Now, this one I'm driving does have a full suite of advanced driver aids too. It's expensive, I'll get to that in a minute, but it is a fantastic system. It works really well. It's got lane keep assist, as well as adaptive cruise control and lane centering. So not only will it keep you in the middle of your lane of travel, but it will even help you steer through curves on the highway. And it works just as well as Nissan's, which I think is probably the best system on the mainstream market right now. Ford has done a fantastic job with this one, and I've been using it quite a bit because it just works so well. It keeps a nice gap from vehicles in front of you, not too big, not too close, and it works really well to speed up and slow down without it feeling strained or like it's rushing. And you know, just overall, that is the vibe of this truck when you're behind the wheel. Whether you have the adaptive cruise control on or not, whether you're out on a country road like this, it's very balanced, very refined. It's just got a really nice demeanor and composure. It doesn't feel like it's buzzy, like it's a cheap truck. It feels really planted, really well balanced. The steering is nice too, and I do usually compliment Ford steering. Although the F-150 is a little too light, but this is nice. It's got just a little bit of heft to it. No, it's not genuine steering feel. It is an electrically power-assisted system, but it's nicely tailored to the size of this truck, and the same goes with the suspension. I'm not sure if it's because this one has the FX4 package, so it's got an upgrade to the suspension at all 4 corners, but it is really nice and smooth. I was actually surprised, and that is one of the benefits of this being unibody instead of body on frame, is there's none of that lateral motion over potholes or pressure cracks in the road. That's one of those problems with trucks that you just can't get around, is they really do rock back and forth, but none of that here. It's a lot more like something like the Honda Ridgeline, and go figure, that's another one of these unibody kind of SUV-based pickup trucks. I know it's not a true truck. A lot of people are going to bash them, but I think they work really well, and that goes for this one too. And I'd even say it's reasonably affordable, although it can get quite expensive. It starts below 30 grand. That is key for me. And even with this gas engine, you can get one for right around 30 grand or so before tax, I think. But once you start adding options, especially to this top trim, it can get quite expensive. This one I'm driving, it's like 46 grand out the door before tax. That is a lot of cash. Now, I don't look at it in comparison to mid-size or full-size trucks. That just doesn't make sense to me, because it's the same thing with cars. You could say, well, hey, for the price of that Civic Touring, I could get myself an Accord. To me, it's about buying something that makes sense. And it goes back to that versatility again. This thing's better on gas. It's easier to drive. It's easier to park. It's way more agile. That to me is the advantage of this, even compared to a mid-sized truck like the Ranger. I like the Ranger a lot, but this is just better. This is an awesome truck. It's an awesome car. It's an awesome crossover. I don't care what you call it or what you're replacing with this. I really do think it checks a lot of boxes for a lot of people because, again, it is so versatile. Plus, it has the added bonus of that bed on the back. Now, if it were my money, I would probably buy the base truck, but with this 2-liter engine and the all-wheel drive system. And you know, that's about 33.5 grand before tax if you add stuff like the tow package, which to me is a no-brainer. That is a good bargain for the price. The only issue for me, no heated front seats and no advanced driver aids. But I'm telling you right now, if you're looking for something cool and a little bit different that can do a lot of jobs in a very user-friendly package, I really think you should go check this thing out. To recap, I like the Maverick's clever and cool interior, the overall versatility it has, and how efficient it is even with the gas engine and all-wheel drive. I don't like the exterior styling, that features like heated seats aren't standard, and how expensive it gets when you add options. You'll know better than me whether or not the Maverick makes sense for you, but I'm telling you right now, this is about as versatile a vehicle as money can buy right now. Sure, you could get a well-equipped Ranger for the price of this one I'm driving. It even touches F-150 money, but that's not the point. It's about flexibility and user-friendliness, and that's really where the Maverick starts to shine. It's also exactly what people have been asking for years, a small, efficient, and relatively affordable rig that isn't totally useless when it's time to do truck stuff.